Hospital or home birth? The environment matters way more than people expect. Before you choose where you're going to give birth, there are a few questions you can ask that will clue you in as to what kind of support you can expect. Quick filter. This video is for women who want an unmedicated birth. If that's not your goal, no worries. You do you. This just is not your video. And I'm also not here to debate what's best. I'm here to just give you the questions so that you can choose on purpose. I'm on your side either way. So before even thinking about which environment you want to have your baby in, there's one question you should be asking any provider that you're considering. If my goal is to have an unmedicated vaginal birth, walk me through how you would support that. Notice I'm not asking if you support it in theory. Everyone's going to say yes. What I'm asking is what that support actually looks like in real life. Because if they can't describe the process, if it's vague or if it's kind of like, we'll see, that's your answer. Okay, so let's start with the hospital questions because it's really going to help you understand what you're walking into. What's your C-section rate for first-time moms at this hospital? Not the national average, not the state average, this hospital, this unit. Because that number tells you what's considered typical at that hospital, and you might want to know that before going. Is fetal heart monitoring typically continuous or intermittent? And do I have a say in that? This one matters because continuous monitoring limits your ability to move, and movement is key. If you're stuck in a bed with very limited positions that you can get into, that's going to make having an unmedicated birth much harder to achieve. What are your rules around eating and drinking during labor? If I'm aiming for an unmedicated birth, I need to know that food and water are available. Doesn't mean you'll want it, you just need to know that you can have it. If the answer is no, that's really going to change what's realistic, especially for first-time moms whose labor often goes much longer. When would your team start recommending things like Pitocin or an epidural? And what would typically trigger that? Knowing this ahead of time is going to help you understand when things might start to shift and you might start getting some pressure so that you don't feel blindsided when the moment comes. You can kind of mentally prepare for that ahead of time. And the last one, what are your standard after birth procedures and what can be delayed? I'm talking skin to skin, delayed cord clamping, delayed bathing. This is really going to tell you how much autonomy you actually have, not just during birth, but right after it. Okay, so now let's switch over to home birth. If you're considering a home birth, you're not just choosing a location. You're choosing one person and a whole different model of care. The first question is, how do you view birth? It's a super simple question, but it reveals a lot. I don't want buzzwords. I want to hear it in their own words. Because if someone sees birth primarily as a medical event that needs managing, that's going to shape every decision they make when things get intense. If someone sees it as a natural experience that unfolds with minimal intervention, that's also going to shape how they respond under pressure. How many births have you attended? There's obviously no perfect number, but experience really does matter. You want someone who's seen enough variation not to panic and enough complications to be prepared if something changes or goes sideways. And this leads me into my third question. If baby is breech, would you deliver or is that an automatic transfer? Now, breech is not ideal, but the answer tells you a lot about how they think under pressure. So for me, when I interviewed my midwife, she explained to me that breech birth has really become a lost art and a lot of providers do not know how to do it safely anymore. So she decided to go and get additional training. That told me that she wasn't succumbing to fear and staying ignorant. She was committed to staying competent, and that really increased my trust in her. Number 4, what's your hospital transfer rate, and why do transfers usually happen? Now, obviously, the goal of a home birth is to have the baby at home, but it's important to note that the hospital should not be avoided at all costs. It's about understanding certain thresholds or knowing what escalation looks like. The biggest thing you want is someone who can plan calmly before you're in the moment. What does postpartum care look like after the baby is born for both me and for the baby? Because the show is not over when the baby arrives. Let's find out how often they check in, whether there's any lactation support, do they come to you? Are you basically on your own once they leave? These are things you need to know. So again, this is not about proving whether home birth is better than the hospital or vice versa. It's really about understanding that where you give birth determines what's realistic for your goals, because you're choosing a model of care, not just a location. So take these questions, ask them, pay attention to how clearly they can answer you, because that clarity is what lets you ultimately choose on purpose. If you're interested in a more comprehensive list of questions for both the hospital or for home, let me know in the comments below. If this helps you think more clearly about your decision, I hope you consider subscribing. This channel is all about the motherhood shift from preconception all the way to finding your groove in motherhood. And I post practical, grounded content like this every week. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.